Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, this is red.olaughlin. We're on the Corner Bookstore today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And our show is primarily for authors, publishers, editors, cover designers, anything dealing with the book industry itself. So if you're interested and you want to sign up, please go to usaglobaltv.com and go down to the Corner Bookstore and take a look at our calendar and get your name on the list. Today, I'm honored to have another fine author from Canada. It seems like we have had a lot of those lately. His name is Greg Barnsdale. Greg is kind of unique in respect to the authors that we have because he is not only an author, which is what we're looking for in the show, but he's also a licensed funeral director. It's kind of a little different. He's a life insurance, certified life insurance, licensed life insurance, whatever the primary term is for that, but also a licensed financial advisor. And so those kind of things, when you start looking at the end of life, when we're looking at trying to get our final affairs in order, those are kind of really, really good credentials to have. And that's what Greg has done, put together a package in a book that helps us with that final decision. So, Greg, please join me.
Thank you for having me on your show, Red. I appreciate it.
We had a little issue up front, and I didn't get a chance to do a lot of back stuff that I wanted to. So we're just going to go ahead and pretend like I know all about you, and we're going to roll on down the road. Anyway, so you said that later on, I guess reading in your Dr. Dorothy Lee, I think, was somebody that you had a neighbor way back when, and it kind of started to put these things together in your mind as to, this is interesting. Maybe this is really where I want to go. Is that a fair way of saying that?
It is, yes. Her name was Dr. Dorothy Lay. She died a number of years ago, but she was actually a pioneer within the hospice movement here in Ontario. She was a physician and quite instrumental, and it was conversations with her that steered me toward becoming a funeral director as a young man.
It's not often that I run into a funeral director. I know a couple here in town because in the last 20 years, I've probably been to 250, maybe 300 funerals. It's just part of military and church organization and stuff like that I've been to. So it's not an uncommon thing. I think one month I went to 9. It's just really, yeah, it is what it is. But so you started out life as a funeral director at a young age. You probably didn't have too many peers in that one, did you?
No, I didn't, but I'm still a licensed funeral director today, Red, 40 years later. But after about 12 years or so, I wanted to try something different. And I actually pivoted and joined the financial planning industry and ultimately developed a strong interest in estate planning, in which the two worlds overlap in the space of post-retirement, as I've heard many say.
Well, that's pretty interesting because that is a natural overlap. Is that something that happened because of the people you were running into and you felt like you could offer something? Or was there really a time in your life that pivot was required?
Both, actually. I ended up running into a number of people, Red, that helped me developed this interest. I ultimately became a certified executor advisor, and I'm a board member for the Canadian Institute of Certified Executor Advisors. And by the way, that's a relatively new designation. Many people have not heard of it, but it's also been recently launched in the United States now, too.
Wow. Okay, so you started your writing career. When did you decide to write a book?
About 4 or 5 years ago, I had worked in many different roles, Red, in both the banking and life insurance sector, the funeral industry, as you had mentioned. And I knew at some point I'd be able to take the information that I had learned from both industries and create something that would really help people. But it was really out of frustration, actually, that I had witnessed in the funeral industry and the financial industry that so many people were just so poorly prepared for end of life issues. And that's why I wrote this short book, was really to inspire them to lean into the aspects of planning because the outcome is so much better.
I've had several financial planners on here over the years. Some are lawyers, are other ones, and they got into it in a variety of ways and a lot of good information to share, et cetera. But you're the first one I've had on who comes from a background who really and truly has witnessed the people at maybe their worst because of the situations that happen, and sometimes they happen so quickly that it's a anyway. I lost my niece 2 days ago, so again, things happen and we don't know about it. Just it got a phone call yesterday, and that was the news. So these things happen to us. So let's get into your book. How long did it take you to actually write it?
Well, it took about 2 solid years, Red. And by the way, I'm sorry to hear about your niece. Life is incredibly delicate, and we just don't know what's around the corner. That's just a reality we all have to face. But it did take me quite a number of years. It took me much longer, actually, to figure out how to compile this message to really inspire people, because it is a subject that so many avoid and would rather not talk about. And that's really the point that frustrated me. And I totally understand it's a sensitive topic, but from what I had witnessed in both industries, the aspect of planning and being organized and speaking with our family about what we want to have happen, and having a will as a vitally important aspect of this, and a medical directive, and just being generally organized and taking the time creates such a better outcome.
The writing is not unusual, a couple, 3 or 4 years to get the first book done. The part that most of us find as authors is the editing process. You have something written. Did you have an editor while you were doing it, or did you worry about editing once you got done?
Well, actually, I followed a masterclass program from a very popular author in Canada, and he highly recommended what I do is recruit quite a number of beta testers from my target market. And I did that, and I strategically followed his advice. I recruited over 25 people. Some of them were relatives, some of them were not, but they all had an interest in end of life issues based on what they had experienced, and they wanted to help. And they basically told me what to include in the book and how best to explain it so that everyday people would understand it. And by the way, Red, none of them were from the financial industry or the funeral or legal industry. They were just everyday people that had a passion for this topic.
Well, Greg, I, like you, look for the same kind of things. I actually invite them over to my house, and I have a party with desserts and wine. We get together for a little social activity first, and then 60 or 90 minutes of dedicated random chapters, red pen. But I write on health and wellness from a cellular level, from a chemical level, and I want to make sure that people understand easily what I'm writing. And so, if you don't understand, circle the word, circle the paragraph. So I understand exactly what you're saying. I try not to get people in any health and wellness industry. Yeah, they show up periodically because they're just part of that. But I think it's critical for our audience, whoever that audience is, that they understand what we're saying. And sometimes there's a turn in there that we don't understand, and if two or three people don't understand, I got to change it because it's something in there that's going to confuse other people. So you got the beta readers, and they helped you with that. All of a sudden, now you have a book that's almost ready to go to print. What happened then?
Well, I actually used a publisher, Red, that from what I understand, and again, I'm a rookie at this. This was my first book, but Friesen Press was a publisher that I had used out of British Columbia, Canada, and I understand that they are a hybrid publisher, basically where they position themselves to help those who want to self-publish but still have some of the resources available through a publisher. And I found them very helpful, and I certainly learned a lot along the way.
With the hybrid publishing, how much did they involve you in the cover design, the title, and all the rest of that stuff?
They basically took my lead, which I was grateful for, Red. And again, my publishing coach, David Chilton is his name. He provided so much information in this excellent masterclass of his, which was so helpful to me along the way. But I leveraged a lot of his advice and strategies and so on, and really leaned on Friesen Press to help me get the book published. So it was helpful having that background information as I went through it.
Okay, so you had your cover already ready to go when you approached them?
No, they helped me. Basically, I gave them the idea of what I wanted to see. I thought that most people could relate to the sky and the green grass and the clouds in the sky relating to life in general. And a lot of people have told me that the result actually is quite good.
So the right there over your right shoulder is a copy of the book, or at least most of it. You have the blue on top, and for those, okay, can you hold it up just a little? There we go. And
Yeah.
the green earth down below. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
practical
right.
advice. Just practical advice for what?
From a funeral and financial insider.
Okay.
And it's a very short read. I didn't want to get into the weeds of different strategies and so on because retirement planning, estate planning, and so on varies so dramatically based on the individual that it pertains to. And at the same time, the topic of end of life issues, a lot of people, as I said, would rather not s- even consider these sorts of things. But I took my coach's advice, worked some humor into it, although it's a little dry. I have the feedback that I've been getting actually is very favorable, and it's doing the job of inspiring people to pull out their will and read it and talk to their family members, and if they haven't got a will, to darn well get one.
Okay. So you have now your book is published. You got your cover. Uh, when did you start your marketing campaign?
I started it pretty well out of the gate of publishing, and that was 2 years ago, just over 2 years. And ironically, after many years of working as a funeral director and a certified financial planner and stressing to others about the importance of having their final affairs in order, I was diagnosed 2 months after publishing with a large brain tumor.
I was going to get into that down the road, but since you introduced it right now, why don't we talk about that part of your life? You got your book, you're getting ready to market it, and now all of a sudden trauma enters the door.
Yeah. And actually, I documented the process of actually what I was going through, Red, and I was incredibly grateful that I had my affairs in order. But when my general physician told me about this large brain tumor, he didn't know if it was cancerous or not. And as I said, I documented this on social media. I didn't tell my wife for 3 days. And then I ended up breaking it to her in tears, sort of thing. And over 1.7 million people saw the one particular video, one of the first ones that I posted on TikTok, which was incredible to see. Yet at the same time, half the adult population of Canada and the US doesn't have a will. There's such a huge gap in people's intentions, yet we all know planning is wise.
Okay, so you had a will at that time because of your experience, previous experience,
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
video was something highlighting your brain tumor and wills, or what?
Well, yes, basically, I just spelled out the fact that if my brain tumor was cancerous, I would have some serious decisions to make, and that's the one video on TikTok under author mortality is my profile on TikTok that's been seen so many times, and it's very very brief, and I've added more videos to create more interest in this sort of thing. But at that point, I didn't know if it was cancerous. I had since learned after seeing the specialist a few days later, it was likely an acoustic neuroma resulting from tinnitus or ringing in the ear, and I've since had it removed, and I'm incredibly lucky. But it certainly adds to my story.
Oh, I bet it does. It's for the story that you're trying to tell, as a sudden onset and the decisions that you would have to make, even regardless of whether it was cancerous or not, because it's it's a major life issue. And so now you're marketing a book, but you also have an opportunity to market the purpose of the book, which kind of coincides. It aligns very, very closely.
It
Maybe
it does, yes. And actually where I'm getting the most mileage read is on LinkedIn, and I believe that's where you and I had initially connected, if I
yes,
recall correctly. But I'm sending basically just a connection request to people from the medical, funeral, legal, financial, end of life, and the faith community, just asking people to connect with me. And I think I've created a fairly unique profile, and a lot of people ignore me, but quite a number connect. And then I basically uh, pitch a very brief summary of my core message, and many of them have provided me their email address, saying it's very inspiring.
yes, we did connect on LinkedIn. It was one of those things. Your connection was okay. I want to know more. Most of the time, you see these things and they do a data dump and vomit all over you with stuff you don't need to know. But you were very courteous. You came on. Okay, yeah, I'd like to know more about that. And in the process of looking back and forth, checking out your website, this, I said, I think you'd be a great guest on this show because of your background. But I want to do a little bit more on the book. We're going to be going to commercial break here in a little over 2 minutes. And when we come back, I'd like to get into your website and a couple other things. But uh, did you use any AI at all in the production of your book?
No, I did not.
Okay. It seems like that's one that's becoming more and more prevalent, not necessarily for writing the book, but for doing the research on it. Is there a second book coming out anytime soon?
No, there is not. I basically where I feel read that I can provide the most value is sharing this message, the preparedness message, as far and wide as I can. And I am seeing purchases in other countries being made too. And I strategically wrote this to be general, yet applicable in many various jurisdictions around the world.
I read a book quite a few years ago, A Stroke of Luck, I think is what it's called. The woman was a forensic brain pathologist who studied primarily dementia kinds of patients, and that was part of her research and Dr. Peru, if I remember right. It's been a while. But all of a sudden, she had a stroke. And in the process of the stroke, she was completely paralyzed. But her mind continued to work. She knew exactly what was going on. And so she kind of compiled everything. And as she gradually got functional again, she actually wrote a book based on from the moment she had that stroke and what was going on all around her, and also what was going on inside her, so that she could, as you were saying, you're telling people I have this problem, and I thought that was probably one of the more unique ways of writing a book that I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, we're close enough. I think we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're getting back, pull up your website and talk a little bit about that, and continue on down your career as a writer.
What if one simple skill could change the way you connect with the world? What if listening could open doors to deeper relationships, stronger businesses, and a better you? Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, brings you USA Global TV and Radio, a space where voices are heard, ideas are shared, and global communities thrive. Through the Elevated Listeners courses and books, you'll master the power of listening, set boundaries with confidence, and transform conversations into opportunities. Join us. Listen, learn, elevate. Whether you're a leader, a coach, a business owner, or someone seeking stronger connections, your journey starts today. Subscribe, learn, and transform today.
Red.olaughlin here on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Our guest today is an author, financial planner, and he's written a book called Do Not Ignore Your Mortality. And so, Greg Barnsdale, please join me again.
Yes, thank you for having me, Red.
Okay, so your books are available in ebook, paperback, and Audible also.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Why don't we go to your website real quickly and check that out? Who designed the website for you? Was that something you did, or is that something the publisher helped you with?
I designed that with some help from a contact that's familiar with creating websites for authors.
I thought you had some interesting columns there, and we'll go down a couple of those. But you got the one book, and then you also have what I think is pretty interesting. It's called Quiz.
Yes.
And I took that as part of getting ready for this thing today. And it basically asks you 4, 5, 6 questions and kind of gives you rather than me tell them, why don't you tell them it's your quiz? Tell them what the quiz is and why.
Well, the reason that I came up with this brief quiz, Red, was really just to use it as a tool to engage with people instead of telling people about the importance of this sort of planning. I felt it was more effective to ask them questions. And that's, again, what I've learned in my role as a financial planner and helping people prepare properly for a good retirement, is to engage using these types of questions. But the questions are strategic, they are precise, and it's really just intended to give people a quick temperature check whether they should be perhaps doing a little more homework in regards to their particular situation. And quite often, I find, generally speaking, the percentage of people, Red, that truly have their ducks in a row and have everything up to snuff with their planning, it's very, very few.
Why do you think so?
Well, it's a moving target, always being organized and on top of everything, and our lives change. Children and grandchildren come into the picture, and rules change within the estate planning world as well. And it's one of the easiest things to put off too. We don't expect to die anytime soon, so it's just one of those things that, and I think truly many of us are procrastinators at heart. I know I am in several areas of my life, but it's vitally important to be on top of this to the greatest degree possible.
Procrastination. It's between that and distractions, I'm not sure which is stronger.
Yeah.
But, okay, so your book is being marketed. All of a sudden, you have a health issue. How long did that health issue take you away from the marketing aspect of your life?
Well, it was incredibly distracting, as you can imagine, but all of the testing and the workup to the actual craniotomy that they had done to remove the tumor, or most of it, from my head. They couldn't remove all of it because about 10 or 15% is wrapped around several facial nerves in my brain stem, and I'm having MRIs fairly frequently to monitor that to make sure it's not growing any further, which so far it's not, and hopefully it never will grow any further. But it was quite distracting for quite some time, Red. But I knew in the process that I would be able to use that experience to help bolster this whole message of mine, and I felt that I had to be transparent with my those people that were following me, and that's why I used various sources of social media to document the whole process.
Okay, you mentioned LinkedIn a moment ago. Where have you found your best success as an author with regard to actually seeing book sales or interest in you as an author?
It's on LinkedIn. I've posted a number of videos on other platforms as well, such as TikTok, Instagram. I've done some on Facebook and some on YouTube as well. Excuse me. But it always makes me wonder how effective all those other efforts that I've been doing on other social media platforms, how effective they are. Whereas on LinkedIn, as you can see on this profile that you've just pulled up here of mine, I now have over 8,000 followers. And I think the reason behind this, Red, is really just because of that intriguing profile that I've strategically created there. But after reaching out to professionals around the world, I then thank them briefly. And then I ask them, is this the most intriguing? Is this the most inspirational end of life motivation? And then I stress these points. End of life planning helps reduce the stress of aging. It helps leave our survivors more financially and emotionally resilient. It leaves them more likely to get along. It naturally results in more meaningful legacies. It takes immense pressure off the courts from otherwise having to deal with so many unorganized estates. It often helps charities. And ultimately, all these things help bolster the economy. And that's resonating with a lot of people.
The LinkedIn success that you've had, you've gone from literally being obscure to having a reasonable following. Plus, as you said earlier, your profile is a bit unique, and so you're in the process of communicating with people. They know who you are, but also the fact that you're an author and you have a book that it can, in fact, not can, should be of interest to just about everyone, because it's one of those things that's going to happen to all of us. Do you have any idea what the percentages are on people who die without having a will?
I can give you a rough estimate, Red. The statistics here in Canada are that only about half of the adult population of Canada has a will. And I believe the statistics in the US are about the same, perhaps a little bit worse. But those who have a proper medical directive, a power of attorney, as we call it here in Canada, the number of those that have a power of attorney in place are even fewer. So the statistics are even worse in that regard. And both these documents are incredibly important.
So if I have a long-term illness and things are looking bleak and I end up in hospice or whatever, we have time to plan, even though the mental function may not be 100%, but there's time for family to get together to do what needs to be done. But that stroke, that car accident, those things that happen that we don't even know about, and there's been a number of those here recently, that kind of puts you behind the power curve. What happens to those people who don't have a will in Canada?
Well, in most jurisdictions around the world, Red, there are government default rules that kick in to play if the person has not opted out of them by having their own wishes properly documented. And that's the case right across this country based on the province or territory that's involved. And my understanding in the US, it's much the same based on jurisdictional rules of each state across the country too. But the key to this, the best solution, is to discuss and have these conversations when minds are clear and time is plentiful. And I can tell you out of my experience, everything that I've seen, especially in the funeral industry, Red, and also what I've gone through with this brain tumor diagnosis, initially assuming it was cancerous, having your affairs in order before something like that happens is such a huge relief. because when there is a health issue that you're dealing with, if you're also forced to scramble to get your affairs in order at that point, I can't imagine the turmoil that one has to go through. And I've seen people go through it many times.
You're a very polished speaker. Do you do speaking as part of your book sales and things?
I do. I do. I'm basically suggesting to anyone that wants to leverage the story that I bring to the table that there are many different ways that we can collaborate, whether that's through discounted book physical sales or electronic excerpts that are very cost effective that anyone can share with any number of people around the world, which gives me exposure to, or speaking in person or through webinars. There are many different ways that we can collaborate.
You mentioned a moment ago about dabbling in the other social medias. You weren't sure what the immediate long-term effect would be. One of the things when I speak about to my audience is I talk about, Greg, what does it take to be a good fisherman, be a successful fisherman? And people will tell me, fishing, the bait, the boat. They go on all about the equipment. And in reality, it's not that at all. What it takes to be a successful fisherman is only one thing, and it's very simple: hungry fish. If you don't have hungry fish, they're not going to bite.
Right.
So if you're out there throwing your information into the social media and this avenue and these things here, at some point in time, somebody is going to be hungry for your information. And so whether it's health and wellness in my end or the mortality aspect of life in your end, that information is there. And they're going to say, yeah, I know. Okay. And as you say, procrastination. And so maybe that's, you're not getting feedback as much as you like, but you're still chumming the water, so to speak, with that information when somebody needs to know. And so I think it's important to keep those other avenues there. I would not say just hammer everything in LinkedIn, because what happens 5 years from now, LinkedIn, algorithms changed a little bit, but maybe Instagram is a better market for authors. And it's one of those ones we just have to kind of keep our fingers in all of them and keep that water just moving a little bit. So your thoughts?
Yes, that does make sense, and it does resonate with what my publishing coach had said too. And also he stressed to me not to be afraid to try new things. So I'm always keeping those pointers in mind too as I continue to market my message.
Are there any hints for those people, newly married? Your financial advisor, and obviously most of us getting married, we barely have enough money to get married. We get a job, we start having kids. Money is an issue regardless of anything else that's going on, in the economy or anywhere else in the world. What is some really good sound advice for 3 different aspects of our life from a financial perspective? Number 1, just got married. Number 2, kids are leaving home. And number 3, I'm retiring.
I would say the best advice I could give to that question, Red, would be to constantly read and do research in regards to these sorts of things. Not to be a specialist in it, because that's where there are professionals such as certified financial planners that can help one with that sort of planning. But if more people had a better understanding of financial literacy and how the different aspects can impact their life, they would be better served and have a better comfort level with all of the different aspects of investments and how they can reduce risk in their lives through insurance planning and so on. And one example that relates to what I had just shared about my brain tumor, on the day of my craniotomy 2 years ago, on the very day that I had brain surgery, my critical illness policy paid me a nice tax-free benefit on that very day. And it was because my mentor stressed to me as a financial planner, as a young financial planner, I had to walk my talk and buy the insurance that I was promoting to people. And I did just that. And I'm so grateful I did.
Well, that is super interesting from a perspective of as you say, walking the talk, because there's so many things out there, and you ask them, well, do you have this? And you kind of see their face change a little bit. So that's pretty impressive, Greg. That really is. So whether you're in retirement age, that's not too old to learn something, and you may have some money set aside for things that can be done. And when the kids leave home, obviously there's a potential for some level of, and we usually put that out for travel and other things because, okay, fine, we don't have those responsibilities. Let's take care of things we want to do as a couple. And so there are things to do, but I like the answer you gave me because it's not do this, do this, do this. And when I ask other people, they kind of give me the do this list of things to do. And so you're, again, a unique bird in this environment, in the fact that you're advocating, let's learn what you need to do. And then as you learn, your own situation. Okay, I really need to talk to somebody about this. And I think that's a very worthwhile way of doing that. The comment you made earlier, there isn't a second book. You're still young enough. There's still things out there. So I would be willing to bet you there may be a second book coming up. And then what you have to do, what one might think about doing is, I got one book. Is there really a complementary book that goes with that one that takes care of the other aspects? In other words, you got this part taken care of. What about this other part over here? Do you need that or not? That's a decision you have to make, because it's obviously not a 1 or 2 month and you're done with it and move on to the next. It's a fairly monumental undertaking, but most of us who have written multiple books find the second one so much easier to write than the first and the third, et cetera. So it becomes an easier journey because it's no longer weird or odd or don't know where I'm going. So let me leave you with my thought of give some serious thought to writing another book, because I think there's a lot of stuff in there, even if they're short books, and they can help you with that aspect of the first book, because now they buy a series of books rather than just the one.
Yes, that's a good point, Red. I have had a number of people ask me that point, if I will perhaps write a second book, but it's something that I'm keeping in mind. But at this point, my main focus is sharing this message as widely as I can.
Okay, so how do people buy your books? How do they get in touch?
The best way for people to find the book, it's available everywhere, actually. But the best way is through my website, donotignoreyourmortality.com. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's available through my publisher, Friesen Press, Chapters, Indigo, Google Play, Kindle, Apple Books, and Nook Book as well. And also it's available in audiobook format too.
Okay, Greg's email address, website for those people on our audio platforms for later on is Do Not Ignore Your Mortality. Do not, D-O-N-O-T, ignore, I-G-N-O-R-E, just like it sounds. Your, Y-O-U-R, mortality, MORTALITY.com. So Greg's in Canada, Ontario area, is that right?
Yes. And by the way, Red, just so people know, that quiz that you had mentioned earlier, that Living Legacy quiz that you had pulled up on my website, it's available for people free of charge any time of day, to help them understand if they do need to do some homework and if they have some things to do. But the other aspect that I've made available for people is what I call the Probing Legacy quiz, and it's 15 curated questions to start these conversations with people that people care about, and 15 more advanced questions to help these conversations get going effectively. And they're available for anyone off my website free of charge too.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate your time today. I think we're going to see you next week on another program of ours. So, Greg, thanks again for showing up today and having the information to share with our audience about your life, your career, and your experience as an author. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
red.olaughlin getting ready to sign off here in just a very brief moment. Up next here again in literally about 18 minutes for a show called The Wise Ones. Ricky McKenna, chef, she and I probably had over 5,000 views the first time we had a show together. She's also a previous host here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. So join me in a few minutes for Ricky McKenna and on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Catch you all next week. Bye now.
Meet Red O'Laughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy all, Red O'Laughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure, 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. You have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on the Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up, and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from the position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at red.olaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting. We're building bridges and changing lives, one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.